Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Kalen DeBoer, Alabama, absolutely rolling on the recruiting trail, landing another commitment. This one coming from, in my mind, one of the more intriguing prospects on the offensive line in the 2025 cycle, Michael Carroll from the state of Pennsylvania. Now, you take a look at how the recruiting services evaluate Michael Carroll. 24/7 Sports, a solid four-star prospect, the number 15th interior offensive lineman in the 2025 cycle. You take a look at On3, the number 27th nationally ranked prospect, the number 2 interior offensive lineman in the 2025 cycle, and you dive into the film and you kind of understand why Alabama's really high on this kid, and On3 is really high on this kid as well. He blends size and that physically imposing frame at 6'6", 315 exceptionally well with elite athleticism. And you see the athleticism show up in multiple different facets of his game. One, when he's pulling around to the play side, I don't know if there's a more violent guard that's pulling to the play side than Michael Carroll in this 2025 class. And then you take a look at some of the defensive reps. This is a very, very talented defensive lineman as well. And although we'll play on the offensive side of the football at the collegiate level, he shows you why he's a top 50 national prospect according to On3 with the athleticism he shows on defense. Really, really fun kid, wrestling background as well. Want to get into the film, talk about what this means for this Alabama program. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and to the Alabama fans. It's been an extremely busy last couple of days breaking down these commitments, the amount of support y'all continue to show to the fellas. It truly does mean a lot. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. A lot more commitments to break down for this Alabama program over the next couple of weeks. And without further ado, let's get into Michael Carroll. And I first want to start with the wrestling background. I mean, you see this kid play with low pads, which is rare to see a 6'6" offensive lineman do at the high school ranks. And I think that wrestling background, he knows how to use his leverage. He knows how to play with the strong base, use his hands. You're seeing a lot of wrestlers that have a lot of wrestling experience at the high school level. I mean, thrive at the collegiate level. I think Mason Graham from Michigan, probably the most notable one. I'm a big fan of offensive linemen that have wrestling backgrounds at the high school level. And then you get into Michael Carroll on the football field. I mean, at 6'6", 315 pounds, it's just really hard to find offensive linemen that are that big, have the functional athleticism that Michael Carroll brings to the table. And I think the last thing I'd note before we get into the film is Alabama just beats out Georgia, Penn State, Michigan for one of the more coveted offensive linemen in the 2025 cycle. We've talked extensively about Kalen DeBoer really showing his recruiting chops in the SEC. If there's a reason to believe in Kalen DeBoer and what he can do within this Alabama program, this commitment might be the best thing to point to when you're beating Georgia out for one of their top offensive linemen in the 2025 cycle. That means something. Want to get into the film Michael Carroll, one of the more exciting film studies to watch if you're an Alabama fan. The first thing you see is, one, really athletic when he's pulling to the play side, but more importantly, just like physically imposing, gets out of the stance, gets to the play side exceptionally well, and then just you talk about nastiness that you want to see at the SEC level, that's it. Then you look at Michael Carroll on the defensive side of the football and just kind of shows you, why this kid now, I feel bad for the running back that has to do pass pro, picking on Michael Carroll coming off the edge. But kind of shows you the upper body strength, but also just the athleticism to get off the line of scrimmage into the backfield. He dominates from an athleticism standpoint. Once again, really good pulling reps, showing the athleticism, the power at the point of attack. Athleticism again. At 6'6", 315 pounds, the closing speed, the functional athleticism in space, that type of stuff translates to the offensive side of the football as well. When you're asking him to get to the second level and pick up second level defenders, you continue to work through the film. We just talked about picking up second level defenders. That's what Michael Carroll is going to do right here. Look how quickly Michael Carroll is going to work up to this linebacker and then just put him right into the defensive backfield. You can see why, even at 6'6", 315 pounds with the athleticism that he shows, you can see why programs want him at guard. Very similar conversation to Tyler Booker coming out a couple of years ago, where, and I don't think anybody's doubting that Tyler Booker has the athleticism to play tackle. But when he's in that phone booth situation, when he's engaged with opposing defensive linemen, that's when he's at his best. And when you talk about elite college football coaches, they know how to put their players in best situations possible. Michael Carroll's best situation is operating in the phone booth, getting hands on interior defensive linemen, and winning at the point of attack. You continue to work through the film, and again, just showing you the athleticism, how physically imposing he is. This is a guy that's going to start for multiple years at the SEC, plays the edge rusher spot at the high school level, working through traffic, making tackles. I think this is a really, really intriguing prospect. I get why Alabama was so high on him. I get why Georgia was so high on him. And I get why On3 has him as a top 30 national prospect. And all of a sudden, you look at this Alabama class in 2025, and it really does just seem like they are just getting started. The number 3 class in the country with only 13 commitments in the fold. We kind of knew that Alabama would be able to recruit the offensive skill with Kalen DeBoer. I mean, the track record he has in terms of developing passing attacks, developing quarterbacks, wide receivers, obviously highlighted with what he did at Washington last year. We knew he'd be able to get those guys. I think the big question mark that we had was, can Kalen DeBoer and this staff come into the SEC and beat out Kirby Smart and Hugh Freeze for the big dogs along the line of scrimmage? Michael Carroll kind of shows you that he can do that. And you take a look at who Alabama just beat out for Michael Carroll, Michigan and Georgia, 2 of the best recruiting and development programs in terms of line of scrimmage players. That really says something in terms of what Kalen DeBoer is selling to these kids on the recruiting trail. I think another example is Antonio Coleman, like getting him back from Auburn. That was another really, really intriguing get where, again, you had the question marks about Kalen DeBoer recruiting the line of scrimmage. It go win out for one of the best and most imposing interior defensive linemen in the state of Alabama. Y'all already know, who've been listening for a while, I am high on what Kalen DeBoer can do with Alabama. The commitment of Michael Carroll even fires me up even more. We'll cut it at that. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.